Introducing Steve Savage of Savage International. Steve is a well-known speaker and business consultant. His advice comes from a life in the trenches as a genuine entrepreneur who developed 17 businesses in 8 countries. He received his master's in business administration and marketing at Michigan State University, but learned more paying his way through college by selling books door-to-door in 5 summers than he did in 6 years at the university. He has had very successful businesses, but also has had some failures. You will learn about both. He grew up in Ecuador and is 100% bilingual in English and Spanish. He spent 6 months in Brazil learning Portuguese. He sold his business and has spent the past 10 years helping companies throughout the world increase their sales as a consultant, coach, and strategist. His clients have included Dell, Colgate-Palmolive, Kohler, Microsoft, and more. He is the author of 2 books, Guerrilla Business Secrets and Savage Sales Secrets.
I wish you could have met Anna. Anna was a 25-year-old person who became our first customer service agent. When we were growing our company from 0 to $60 million back in the 80s. My wife and I started in the garage. And over the years, we grew from 0 to $60 million. And we got to the point where we needed some help. And we hired Anna, and she became our first customer service rep. And then after a while, we added more customer service reps, and Anna became the supervisor, and she was managing 10 other customer service reps. And I began to realize Anna was wonderful. She was dynamic. She was wonderful on the phone. Our customers would call, and she would handle them so beautifully on the phone that she just was really vibrant and dynamic. The kind of business we had, it was a school fundraising business. We designed and manufactured products that kids could sell to raise money for the schools. So if a kid comes by your door and knocks on your door and he's selling something, blame it on me. I sicked him on you, I'm sorry. But this was a long time ago. We sold our company a long time ago, but we had a brochure with fashion jewelry. The jewelry ran from about $2 to about $15. And the kids would sell it to their family and their friends, and their mothers and dads would take the brochure to work and take orders, and the schools would raise $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 in 1 week. And some schools raised $10,000 or $15,000. And so Anna would be the person that would talk to the schools on the phone. And she would take their orders, and she would talk to them if they had any problems and this sort of thing. And I noticed that Anna was starting to ask me a lot of questions. She was starting to ask me to make a lot of decisions. She'd say, Steve, how about this? Steve, how about that? And I would say, do this, do that, and she would gladly do it with great enthusiasm. Then I started thinking, you know, Anna's asking me a lot of questions because, you know, back in the old days when my wife and I were working out of our garage, my wife and I made all the decisions. Let me rephrase that. My wife made most of the decisions. Let me rephrase that again. My wife made all the decisions. But anyway, years went by, and Anna was asking me to make decisions. It was pretty easy for me to just say, sure, Anna, yeah, try this, try that. And she did it with great enthusiasm. But one day, I said, Anna, let's sit down. Let's chat for a little while. I said, Anna, you're smart. You're enthusiastic. You understand the business. You're talking to customers on the phone all day. I trust you. I want you to make decisions from now on. I don't want you to consult with me about decisions. You just make decisions. You just decide. Well, she felt great. She said, Steve, that's great. She kind of smiled, and I said, whew, this is wonderful. But then she got a little nervous. She said, what if I make a mistake? And I said, Anna, I make mistakes. You're going to make some mistakes. That's the only way we ever learn. And if you make a mistake, join the club. I will back you 100%. And that's the way we grew as a company. She had the power to make decisions, and she made good decisions. Then a few weeks went by, and then I noticed that all the customer service reps that reported to Anna, they were asking her to make decisions, and she was making all the decisions for them. So we got together with the whole group, and I said, you know, a few months ago I told Anna that she could make all the decisions and she didn't have to consult me anymore. And now you guys are asking Anna to make all the decisions, so we got to make you have the same power that she has. You got to make decisions. When a customer talks to you on the phone, you got to be able to make a decision. And so we're going to let you make decisions too. And then we asked them for different cases where things had come up and what kind of decisions they had to make. You know, if a customer wanted to return some merchandise or a customer needed a credit on a shipping bill or things like that. So I just say, let's pretend you own the company. Let's just pretend you're the owner of the company. What decision would you make? And they'd say, well, I would decide this. And I say, great, that sounds good. And then we'd use another example. What decision would you make here? I would, and that, like, we took a real extreme case. They said, well, you know, one customer ordered $5,000 worth of jewelry, and then the principal canceled the sale, and they wanted to ship it all back. And I said, well, what would you do if you owned the company? They'd say, well, I'd take it back. I'd say, well, good, just take it back, you know, and be nice about it. Don't get bitter, don't get mad. I mean, you might be mad inside, but don't make the customer feel bad. And those are the kind of decisions, if you think like you own the company, you're going to make intelligent decisions. And I said, try to make a decision that's good for the company and it's good for the customer. But if you have a little bit of doubt, lean towards the customer, because ultimately that's going to be good for the company as well. So think about your restaurant business. You know, the person that's really in contact with your customers is the wait staff. Do they have the privilege and the power to make decisions if they have to? Here's a situation I ran into just recently. My wife and I went out to eat at a restaurant, and we got some chicken that was really tough. It just was not very good. Everything else was good, the vegetables were good, but the chicken was tough. And it was really inedible. I mean, it was just so hard we couldn't eat it. So we ate the vegetables and left the chicken on the plate. And so the waitress came by and said, didn't you like the chicken? I said, it was just too tough. It was unchewable. And so she went back and talked to the cook, and she came back and said, well, the cook says he'll give you a free dessert. Well, I didn't want a free dessert. I just wanted to get out of there. And you know, if she had had the power to make a decision, she would have made a decision instantly. She said, look, we won't charge you for this at all. You know, that would have been a good PR move, and I would have said, that's great, and I would have given her a big tip and all that kind of stuff. But she had to go consult with the chef. He made a bad decision. He should have actually come out and talked to us too. He didn't even do that. But the best thing would have been if she could have made a decision. The second best thing, if he'd come out, but you've got to give your people the ability to make decisions. You've got to give them parameters so that they can make intelligent decisions. And, you know, I've never gone back to that restaurant, but if they had treated me right, I'd be because, you know, that happens from time to time. You know, food sometimes gets badly prepared, but if you treat the customers right, they're going to come back. Okay, so let's think about that. The first thing I talked to you about was love your employees, elevate them. The second thing I talked about was delegating decisions and driving decisions downward. And by the way, I see it's about 9:30, so I've been talking about 20 minutes. And we started about 10 after 9 here, and I'm getting a little nervous. And the reason I'm nervous is because my dad used to say that the perfect sermon was 20 minutes long. He said, after 20 minutes, you lose them. You know, your audience, they just go to sleep, their mind starts to wander, and you know, it's just, so he always preached a 20-minute sermon. He always had 3 points, and ended the sermon right there. He's a dynamic preacher. So I was worried. I was thinking last night, boy, I'm going to talk to these restaurant owners tomorrow, and I got to talk for 3 hours from 9 to 12. I'm going to give them some breaks. But still, how am I going to keep them excited and motivated for 3 hours? Dad told me 20 minutes. You know, how am I going to do it? But then I read an article in the Harvard Business Review. And in the Harvard Business Review, they did a survey of audiences and how they respond to a speaker. And in this survey, they analyzed different audiences. They did about 100 different speeches, 100 different audiences. And they found out that about 11% of the audience actually absorbs and retains everything that the speaker is talking about. Only 11%. About 22% are thinking about personal problems. And 67% are having sexual fantasies. So that kind of relaxed me. I figured, you know, it doesn't really matter what I say. 2/3 of you are going to be having a great time. So, anyway, I want to talk to you also about another situation we had in our company. We had a guy named Skip, who had been a high school principal. I told you that our business was calling on schools, and we went to the schools and we helped them raise money. And this particular school had raised $25,000. The average school raised about $4,000 or $5,000. This school raised $25,000. He did a phenomenal job. And we discovered that some of our best salespeople were not people that had sales experience, but people that came out of the school environment. And we started hiring principals and band directors and coaches. And we had great success with them. They didn't know anything about sales, but they knew the school environment. And we were able to teach them how to sell. And Skip was so enthusiastic about the job. He just loved it. He quit being a principal and he started calling on schools. And I remember when I first interviewed him for the job, he said, you know, Steve, I really love kids. I really love the school environment and all that kind of stuff. I don't really know if I want to leave. And I said, well, Skip, you know, if you work with us, you'll still be in the school environment. You'll still be able to talk to kids. And he said, great. I said, you'll be able to make a lot more money than you're making as a principal. He said, great, I'm coming. So he came, and he started working with us. And but one thing he did at the end of each day, like schools ran from about 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon, then he'd come over to the office and he'd talk to everybody. He'd talk to Tom, the production manager, and he'd talk to Bernard, the controller, and he'd talk to everybody about how great the job was and how much fun he was having. And Bernard, the controller, you know how controllers are. The way they smile, you know, they're somehow something happens to their lips. It doesn't go like this, it goes like this. And so Bernard would come to me and said, Steve, you gotta talk to Skip. He's driving me crazy. He's coming in every day and I got a lot of work to do and he's talking and talking and talking. And you just gotta talk to him and tell him not to come in so much. This is driving me crazy. Well, I couldn't throw a bucket of cold water on Skip's enthusiasm. So I said, well, Bernard, let's do this. Instead of Skip coming to the office, why don't you go out and spend a half a day with Skip visiting schools? Bombshell. Oh, no, I couldn't do that. I'm way too busy. You know, I'm working here 10, 12 hours a day. I can't possibly go out and visit schools. Well, I had two partners, and we kind of worked on Bernard for a few weeks, just nudging him along. And finally, we persuaded him to go and spend a half a day calling on schools with Skip. So, you know, school started at 7 in the morning, and Bernard was used to coming to work at 9. But he got up early in one morning and went out and visited schools with Skip from 7 in the morning until about 11, 4 hours. 4 hours was all we asked. And 4 hours later, he came back. And a transformation had come over Bernard. Instead of that sour look, he actually smiled. He had a real genuine smile on his face. And he said to me, kind of grudgingly, he said, Steve, I hate to admit it, but this was a pretty good idea. He said, I never really realized what our business was all about. I never realized what the customers were like. I never realized how they were responding to our products. I never realized what it was like for Skip to go out there and call on people. I didn't realize what a tough job he had. So this was a good day for me. I really am glad you talked me into doing it. So after that, we made it a policy in our company that every single person in the company that had any management responsibilities or any customer service experience would go out in the field with one of our salespeople at least once every 6 months. Every production person, every operations person, every accounting person, every customer service person, it became almost a religion with our company that they would have to go out and spend half a day every 6 months calling on people. And it transformed the company. Everybody got an idea of what our customers were like. So I know in your restaurant business, you don't have salespeople out there knocking on doors or anything, but you do have a sales force. Your sales force is the wait staff. And an analogy to what I just said is you as owners or you as managers, I would recommend that you do the same thing, that you take a shift as a wait person once every 6 months, once a month, I don't know, you decide. But I think from time to time, you ought to actually get out there and spend 8 hours on the floor going through what a weight person goes through. And probably you've all done it at some time. Maybe in the past you started out. I talked to a couple of you today where you started out as weight people way back, but then you've kind of gotten out of it. Now you're just running the restaurant and you're not really doing that. But if you could actually experience that experience of being a waitress or a waiter and waiting on people for a full shift and going through that pressure and the tension and everything they go through and feeling it out for, just doing that every once in a while. In our company, when we grew from 0 to 60 million, we started out, my two partners, myself, 3 of us total, we started all calling on schools. That's how we started the company. We personally called on schools, and that's how we figured it out, just like you guys started out in the restaurant business. But we always made it a point. We always made it a rule. Even after we got 250 salespeople out there, we would each spend half a day in the field with a salesperson at least once every 2 weeks. And we never, ever deviated from that rule. It was like a rigorous thing for us. We always did it. And that kept us fresh. It kept us knowledgeable. And so not only did we ask our managers to do it, but we set the example. We made sure that we did it too. And it was just part of our mantra. We made sure that we always did it. So think about that. If you're not already doing it, think about you as the owner, you as the manager of the restaurant, being a waiter, being a waitress, at least once a month, once every 6 months, whatever you decide to do, but be out there. And I call it getting in the trenches. When you're in the sales force, you get out there in the trenches, you meet the customers. In the restaurant business, being out there among the tables, among the customers, that's in the trenches. So think about that. I think that's something that would really help you a lot, just to have the feel for what's really going on in your business. Now, I want to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. And this is something that I would like to recommend to you too. You shouldn't be shy about promoting your business. You should always be proud to say who you are and what you do. And I want to promote 2 of my books here that I've just written. And this first book is called Guerrilla Business Secrets. And it came off the press about 6 months ago, and it's selling well on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. And this is co-authored with Jay Levinson. I don't know if any of you have read the book Guerrilla Marketing. Jay wrote the book Guerrilla Marketing about 30 years ago. And I knew him pretty well way back in California when we had our company. We hired him to be a copywriter. And he went with me to visit some schools. And in his book, Guerrilla Marketing, he dubbed me as one of the boldest guerrilla marketers he had ever met. And the reason for that is he went out and visited some schools with me. And in every school, there's a sign on the door. It says, all visitors must report to the principal's office. But I never went to the principal's office. I always went straight to the coach, or I went straight to I went to the gym and went to the coach, or I went straight to the band director. And then later on, I'd go to the principal. But because the person that needed the money was the coach. The person that needed the money was the band director. They were the ones that wanted to raise the money. And so I'd talk to the band director. They'd say, yes, we want to do this project. Then I'd go and see the principal. I'd say, Joe, band director, wants me to come by next Tuesday and talk to the kids about a possible fundraising project. And I just wanted to check with you and make sure it didn't conflict with anything on your calendar. And the principal would say, yeah, that's okay. And if I'd gone to the principal first, what do you think his response would be? Either nah, or it usually wasn't that. It was usually, yeah, this looked like a pretty good program. Why don't you leave your business card and we'll give you a call. And nothing ever happened. So Jay just loved that technique that I had of going straight to the band director or straight to the athletic director. And so he said, this is real guerrilla marketing. So about 2 years ago, Jay said, why don't you write the story of all your business career? And we called it Guerrilla Business Secrets. And so I actually wrote the book. Jay wrote the introduction, but I co-authored it. It says Jay, Conrad Levinson, and Steve Savage, because I wanted to use his Guerrilla brand. He sold over 20 million copies of the Guerrilla Marketing book, so I wanted to use his brand, and it's really sold well on Amazon.com. And then I've got a second book that just came off the press last week. So this is brand new. It's called Savage Sales Secrets. Originally, we were going to call this thing Guerrilla Business Secrets, and to follow up on this one. But then somebody said to me, Steve, you're crazy. You got to establish your own brand. So instead of Guerrilla Sales Secrets, call it Savage Sales Secrets. So I had already signed a contract with Jay Levinson and with the publisher. So I called the publisher and said, how would you feel about changing the title to Savage Sales Secrets? And he said, sounds great. Talked to Jay about it. So I talked to Jay and said, how would you feel if I changed the title to Savage Sales Secrets? And Jay was very gracious. He said, sure, go ahead and do it. So here it is. It just came off the press, Savage Sales Secrets. So during the breaks and everything, if you guys want to buy it, they sell on Amazon.com for $19.95 a piece, but here you can buy them for $15 a piece, or if you want to buy them both together, you get them for $25 for both of them. So anyway, here they are. So that's what I call shameless self-promotion. So you always ought to be promoting your business and letting people know who you are and what you do. And I want to talk to you about something I saw last night that was really interesting. I just talked to Rick Frederickson back here. How many of you know Rick? He's the manager for Millie's Cafe. And I had a real interesting experience at Millie's Cafe last night. And I want to share this little thing I saw with you. It's a great restaurant, excellent food, excellent service, but there's a lot of other restaurants with excellent food and excellent service. But they did one thing I've never seen done at any restaurant, and it was truly a genuine, unique marketing idea. The waitress, her name was Heather, after I ordered some wine, she came and offered me the cork. And she said, if you'll put your name on this cork, and a little message on the cork, we'll put the cork in the front window. She said, did you notice all those corks when you came in the front door? I said, yeah, there were hundreds of them. She said, just put your name on here and then I'll escort you and we'll open the window and you can just throw the cork there in the window. And so I put my name on there and she said, come on over here. And she opened this big window and I just threw the cork in there and she closed it. And so I went around, my cork landed right next to the window and I could see my name, Steve, right there. It was kind of cool, you know. And that's one of these marketing ideas that doesn't cost anything, but it makes, like, I sort of feel identified with Millie's Cafe, you know, like I left my name there, and it's something totally unique, and that's the kind of thing we'd like you to think about today, creative ideas like that you can do with your restaurant that don't cost very much money or cost zero. And that way you can build your company, build your business, and add your profits. How many of you think that price is the most important thing in a consumer's mind? The price of your menu. Well, I didn't see anybody raise their hand, which I'm glad to see, because price is really not the most important thing. You can actually get away with raising prices. We're going to get into that throughout the day more and more about how you can raise your prices and you can increase your margins without suffering a downturn in sales. So we'll keep talking about that as we go along. I wanted to talk to you about one other thing too. This is another thing that's tied in with sort of the atmosphere in your company. In most companies, there's little bickering and little annoyances and little kind of conflicts that go on between people. And little bitterness and little hatreds and little fights and all that kind of stuff. And you know, I was talking to you earlier about having this love and all that, and how do you get rid of it? I had a profound experience in South Africa about 4 months ago. I was doing a marketing conference in Angola, and I was in Angola for about 3 days for a marketing conference. The first time I'd been in that part of Africa. I'd been in West Africa, but I'd never been in the southern part of Africa. So after the marketing conference was over, I decided to go and spend a few days in South Africa just as a tourist. And so I went to Nelson Mandela's boyhood home, and I saw the prison where he had spent 28 years of his life. And I've been in a lot of African countries, and a lot of them are in really desperate shape. They don't function very well. Nelson Mandela came out of prison after 28 years, smiling, big smile on his face. He forgave the people that put him in prison. He forgave the Dutch people, he forgave the British people that had put him in prison, and he incorporated them into the structure of South African society. And because of that, South Africa functions well today. And when I saw that, I thought about it, you know, I'm never going to hold a grudge again. I'm not going to get mad and irritated at little petty things that happen to me. And you know, so often just people might say something nasty or they hurt your feelings or things like that. How could I possibly be annoyed when Nelson Mandela was able to forgive people after throwing them in jail for 28 years? And it's been an uplifting thought for me. And I think if you can take that back to your businesses and tell people that if they ever get annoyed with each other, just think about Nelson Mandela. If he was able to forgive people after 28 years, you can forgive people too. So if somebody irritates you or annoys you, you don't have to go up to that person and say, I forgive you. Just forgive them in your own head. You know, just forgive them in your own brain, because it's not for their sake, it's for your sake. Just to clear out your brain, clear out your head, make yourself feel better, and everybody's going to be happier if you function that way. I want to give you a couple more examples of restaurants that I've been to recently. A couple of bad examples, then we're going to break. I was in a restaurant just a few weeks ago, and I sat down for lunch, and the waiter came up to me and took my order, and I said, I'm in a pretty big hurry. So as soon as you bring my lunch, I'd like to have my check right away, because I've got to get out of here. He said, okay. So he brought my lunch, and I said, could I have my check? He said, okay. He disappeared. So I ate my lunch, and he was gone, and I was done with my lunch, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I couldn't see him anyplace. And you know, I was looking around, and you know, he was gone. He disappeared. And you know, my mother told me a long time ago, Steve, you should never wave your hands in a restaurant. You should never yell at the waiter. And so you know, I know my manners, but I was getting very nervous. I had a meeting I had to go to, and I finally waved at a waiter. I said, would you mind telling my waiter that I need my check? Okay. And that waiter didn't tell my waiter anything. So I finally got up, and I went around and I looked for him, and I found him. And I said, I need my check. You know, I've got a meeting. Could you please get me my check? And he said, you know, I do have other people to take care of. Now that is not a good thing to do. I will never, ever go back to that restaurant again. So, you know, you can just have one waiter do one stupid thing like that, and you lose a customer forever. And the food was good. There was nothing wrong with the food. The price was good and everything else. But that one thing, I just am not going to go back to that restaurant ever again. But I will go back to Millie's again. I got treated so well. You know, so the way you treat people is so important. And the main thing we're going to talk about over the next 2 hours is different ways that you can really. We're going to cover these several things. We're going to talk about 5 marketing strategies that are going to help you do business. We're going to talk about how you can be a leader instead of a manager. We're going to talk about 12 savage factors that guarantee your sales growth. We're going to talk about the 7 P's to put your restaurant on a solid foundation. And that's what we're going to do. So I want to once again compliment you. I really admire you for having the guts to run a restaurant. So before we go on break, let's applaud ourselves, and if you like my speech so far, applaud me too, okay?